love is our product. Coffee is just a method to bring people in so that we can establish relationships with people. I mean, our mission is to make a difference in the community and in the people's lives within a community. And coffee is just a way to get them through the door so that we can do that.
A relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast, invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show, and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Making memorable moments, creating human connection, building real relationships, not as a strategy or a tactic, but as a way of life. That's what we're talking about today on the B2B Growth Show. My name is Ethan Beute. I host the Customer Experience series here on the show, and I've got two guests for you here in the same conversation. They're from Dutch Bros Coffee, a company that's built a truly fanatical fan base in a highly competitive market. The secret? Investing in people. This episode brings a beautiful blend of philosophy and practicality. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, thanks for clicking play on this episode of the Customer Experience Podcast. You and I are about to experience a first here on the show. Two guests on the same episode. These guys have spent 10 years and 20 years respectively helping build community, build teams, and ultimately create satisfied customers for Dutch Bros Coffee, which is the largest privately held drive-through coffee chain in the United States with about 300 locations and more than 12,000 team members. Not too long ago, they were Vice President of People Development and Senior Vice President of Leadership, but today they are the Vice President of Southwest Field Operations and the Senior Vice President of Field Operations. I'm looking forward to getting into people, into culture, leadership, field operations, and more. Lance Risser and Levi Ayriss, welcome to the Customer Experience Podcast.
Thank you. We're stoked to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you. You know, before I have a standard open, and it's a fun one. It's your definition of customer experience. Before we go there, I want to say, if you show up at a Dutch Bros, what's your go-to? What's your go-to drink? What are you hoping happens there, and what are you ordering?
I feel like there's a natural evolution through your time at Dutch Bros. We usually start off as a customer most of the time, and we start off with a super sweet drink. My favorite when I started was a white chocolate annihilator. It's white chocolate macadamia nut bread, really good. And it slowly became a black Americano. So I love my black coffee, and it's my go-to every time.
Yeah, my progression was the exact same, the Annihilator to the Americano, except I do a small quad with 3 heavy whipping cream.
Oh my gosh, a quad. That's pretty hardcore, man.
Yeah, that's what we do. If you're going to play, you're going to play hard.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into customer experience specifically. I feel like this whole thing is just going to tie together so nicely because of the way you approach your business. But let's just start right there. Like, what are your thoughts? What are some characteristics of customer experience?
Some characteristics of customer experience. I love that question, especially the emphasis on experience, right? Because to us, it is primarily about a moment that is created between two individuals. A desire meets a craft. And there's an opportunity in between those two things, or the way those two people interact, that is an opportunity for an experience. Something memorable that your customer can feel honored in a way that they want to share that with other people so that they can experience the same feeling. And it's an opportunity that not everyone gets right every time, but it is that. It's an opportunity to create a moment with another human being as a stimulation for hopefully a long-term relationship.
Totally. And I would just add, we get to meet people where they are. In life, we're going through ups and downs. Everybody's going through different phases of life, and it's finding out the moment that person is going through and meeting them in that place to provide them the best possible experience that they need at that moment. We've heard stories at Dutch Bros of people coming in right after they're diagnosed with cancer or a loved one passing away, and the employee has to be a shoulder to cry. And at the same time, we have people coming through that they just got married or they just had their first child and they're so excited, and we've got to celebrate with them. So I think it's just meeting the customer at that space and time that they need in that very moment.
I love it. I love the relationship basis, the long-term aspect of it. I loved your use of the word honor, right? Like, I'm honoring this person's decision to show up and be here with me, right? And so good. I want to get into some of those stories. But first, just for folks that are listening, you were named in 2017 as a small giant by Forbes, which makes you one of America's best small companies. To me, by the way, at a company with like 140 team members, 12,000 sounds like a pretty big company. But give folks a little bit of context, just like general business, like what are you guys trying to get done? What does the business look like? Just at a high level for context maybe for folks that don't live out west.
Yeah, so we started off as a little push cart coffee shop in downtown Grants Pass in 1992. Up until 2008, we franchised our company, and we had, I want to say, 50 to 60 franchisees in 7 states. And in 2014, I believe, is when we switched to company-owned model. So we have, right now, we're about 50% franchised and 50% company-owned. And we currently have 354 locations, and our goal is to hit 800 by 2023. So we're growing at a really, really huge rate right now, and it's been a really, really exciting season. But yeah, that's where we're at and where we're going.
So it's obviously a super competitive field, right? Like at some point in your growth arc, Starbucks was like, oh man, we need drive-thrus, right? And they're not the only company that turned that light on. That's obviously where you guys start. That's your sweet spot. That's your model. In this super competitive space, what makes you guys unique?
I think people would say that what makes us unique is our attention to trying to build real relationships with people, and not as a strategy, but as a lifestyle, not as a tactic just for retention, but as the development of something a little bit more meaningful. And I think as much as we're probably criticized for being a little over the top with our energy, we also get an equal amount of praise for being authentic to people. So yeah, I'd say that's probably what people would say makes us special. I think the competitive nature of the industry pushes us to be more creative in some of our offerings and all those like normal business tactical things, like making sure you're keeping up with creative drink ideas, making sure that you're in front of all that stuff. But our attention really stays tethered to how do we create moments for people who need them, when they need them, in the way they need them.
I love it. I think like attracts like. I mean, this idea that, you get criticized for something, but you also get praise for it, that's what attracts the employees. That's what attracts the customers, and it's based in who you are. And so I love the language around not making it a strategy or a tactic, but a lifestyle. So, and I want to get into that a little bit because I guarantee, without having met you guys before, that it's in the way that you're recruiting and attracting and hiring. It's probably in the way you're onboarding. It's probably in the way that you're training and coaching your team members. Let's get to it from the kind of the community angle. So as I was going through the website, of course, these are just a few lines that I read that just said community to me. So I'd love for you to speak to them, not specifically, but the spirit behind it, because I know that it's natural to you. I also want to get into the language of mobsters and the Dutch Creed and all these things. I want to get into that language because I think that's in that over the top thing that some people maybe can't attach to. But, on the employment page, one of the calls to action is join the mafia. On the story page, we may be a coffee company, but we're in the relationship business. Coffee is what we do, but it's not who we are. Talk about this sense of belonging and like how that manifests itself in the way you operate.
Yeah, we've always said that love is our product. Coffee is just a method to bring people in so that we can establish relationships with people. I mean, our mission is to make a difference in the community and in the people's lives within a community. And coffee is just a way to get them through the door so that we can do that. And it's been an amazing journey. I know both of us started as broistas in the company. We call them broistas, not baristas. But I started in Eugene back in 2009. You started in Medford
in 2000.
2000. But when you start with this company, you realize that it truly is about the mission that we're on. And there's something about it that's just so, you're magnetized to it and you want to be a part of it. You feel like you truly are making a difference in people's lives every single day. And it's been an amazing journey for me. I was going to school, going to college, was working at a stand in Eugene while finishing up my degree, going to pursue something in the medical field or in science, and got my degree, was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was like, why would I want to leave a company that I feel like I never worked at? I'm never actually working every day. I'm actually just having a fun time listening to music and hanging out with my best friends from all over the city all day long. And it's the coolest thing in the world. And we truly live that out every day. That's who we are, and that's who we'll always be.
I think too, some of that language you're reading on the website, we love language. We love connection. We love communication. We love pushing ourselves to be better at it. And we also want to be playful. Like if we're not having fun, like how is it going to be attractive? Like everybody's attracted to doing things that are enjoyable. And if we aren't enjoying what we're doing, and if we're not authentic examples of people who are being filled by our contribution to this thing, then it's not going to be magnetic to the type of people that we want. And people tend to migrate towards what we're doing because they either A, are like us, or B, would like to be like the people who work for us, who are enjoying, honoring, pouring into the community. And so we're really fortunate in the sense that I feel like we've done a really good job of hiring people who just authentically care about people. Yeah. And or at least real close to finding that place in themselves, you know?
I would say more often than not, when people are interviewing with Dutch Bros, they're like, you guys have something so special and I want to figure out, I want to be a part of that. Like they're coming in being our raving fan right out the gate. They see something special about us and they're just, they want to be a part of it. So it's been cool.
So I'm going to assume then that like both of you and like you just offered, some significant share of your team members or employees or mafia members are former customers, or I guess they're still kind of current customers, but they work there.
Yeah. I would say a majority of them are. The only time where that might not be the case is if we're going into a new market, but pretty quickly they become our biggest customers as they're our employees.
Cool. Let's do a quick drive-by on that. Like, what markets are you in, and where are you going en route to? I think you said 800 stores or 900 stores. What markets are you in now, so people can check this out and experience it? And where might you be going if you're willing and able to disclose that?
Yeah, we're primarily West Coast based. We're in Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, Nevada, Colorado, and Arizona. And we're really still saturating in a lot of those states. I think the state that's saturated the most is Oregon, where we started. We've got, I think, 140 locations in Oregon. And now we're starting to expand into some new states and new territories. We're still saturating in Arizona and Las Vegas market, Nevada. We're starting to look in Albuquerque and Utah, and Texas isn't too far out. So yeah, we're growing, and our goal is to grow at a rate that we don't lose sight of who we are, and that we have the right people to go out there and plant the Dutch Bros flag in a new community. And if we don't have the right people, then we're willing to completely halt our growth. It's not worth sacrificing who we are to grow. So we're always evaluating our growth rate, making sure that we have the right people to do it. And if we don't have the right people, then we're going to stop. But as of right now, it's looking like New Mexico, Texas, and Utah are our next logical steps.
Awesome. It's so important, this idea of, and we've gone through it in Fitz. Again, we're a fraction of your size, a much different business, but that's something that we've we followed the ebb and flow of a little bit, as we have our own growth targets and we hired a plan and these types of things, but protecting what makes the company unique and what makes the company special and what makes it a place that you guys want to show up every day and makes customers want to show up at the stores every day. One of the most important things that can happen in the growth of a company is that you protect and preserve what makes it so great for you as team members and for the customers who show up. Fortunately, you're in a business where probably a lot of them show up every day or maybe even multiple times a day. But how do you do that functionally? Like, how do you know you've got the right people? When did the flags go up? Maybe when in the history of the company, because you've both been around so long, when did it become so obvious that that's something you have to protect? And what are you doing to protect it?
Yeah, I would say that first you got to start out, you have to know what that thing is. I think a lot of people think they know what it is, or they start out with core values that they've crafted that they believe are going to be the guardrails for where they want to take their business. You have to know what it is. You have to dedicate to it daily. And the greatest killer, I think, that'll pull you away is distraction. So I believe that there's this idea that you have to constantly be challenging who you are and what you're about, or trying what the world is trying in an effort to be more successful. And like anything, I mean, you talk to old guys and they say, you want to be successful, keep doing the same thing. Just dedicate to it longer term. Don't give up on what you're doing that is good. And so I'd say, know what it is, guard against it from distraction, and find peace in the simplicity of your mission. I think we overcomplicate things because our core isn't flashy or seemingly profound, but there's beauty in focusing on your fundamentals every single day. I've said this before at some of our speeches. The only difference between a phenom and a beginner is that the phenom understands the fundamentals better. Everything breaks down to a couple simple moves. And if you do them perfectly over time, consistently, then you can master that thing. I think when you start to layer in 100 other moves, which is, you can experience that now with social media and marketing and all this, the analytics, all this stuff is fantastic, and you should leverage whatever information you have access to. However, don't get distracted from what your core is. And I think you realize that, and I can't state when we realized that we had to protect it, but you realize you have to protect things once you smell a threat to it. Mm-hmm. And that's generally in the form of a distraction or an entitlement mindset, any of those things. And it'll stir up in your gut that there's something that could potentially harm this thing. If it's real and if it's grounded in those human things, that's why I love your t-shirt, The Rehumanize. I think it's so beautiful. If your core is grounded in those human things, the honoring other human beings, it'll stir something in your soul that demands that you stand up against the things that threaten it. That's both from the outside and from the inside. And I think the way you hedge against that is, again, you know what you're about. You find people who come stock with a similar mindset on a similar wavelength, care about people in a similar way. And then you just constantly remind each other and hold each other accountable when you start to veer off and your language goes a certain direction where it's not serving that cause or that core. Or that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, and to add to that, like I mentioned earlier, we switched from a franchise model to a company-owned model because we brought in a lot of franchisees who were super great entrepreneurial minds that helped us get us to where we needed to be. But we also saw we have a bunch of phenomenal employees who love Dutch Bros and they bleed Dutch Bros and they wanted to carry the Dutch Bros flag into new areas, but they didn't have the financial means to do that. So we switched to a company-owned model. And I think the coolest thing about it is we're able to provide these amazing opportunities for our best people to go out there and carry the mission forward everywhere. And it's been super rewarding. We play a big role in the selecting of these people, and we're always refining how we select them, how we observe, what are we weighing in on who goes and takes on that new mission. But the people, we have a large list, a big bench of people that love this company, care so much about what we're accomplishing and want to go out there and do that. And to provide those opportunities for the right people to go out there and carry it on has been incredible.
It's awesome. I came across that bench concept as an idea in kind of reading up on you guys before the show. Talk about the importance of that bench and like kind of cultivating it, because it ties into what you were talking about before, which is, if we have the right people, we're going to keep going and executing this plan. You might even have an opportunity through great people on the bench to maybe even get out ahead of the plan and be ahead of pace on that 2023 goal. How do you cultivate and kind of keep track of the bench of, the next great people for the next great market or the next great store, the next great opportunity for an individual? Like, how do you manage the bench of talent that you have and how do you cultivate it?
Our team consists of a business coaching team, and this business coaching team, they're regionalized across all of our 7 states. And those guys all came from within, grew into the top level leadership in the company, whether it was a franchisee or a company or an operator, or they were a high level leadership role, a regional manager for a franchisee overseeing multiple locations. And we brought these guys in, and their primary focus is evaluating and building our bench. So these guys are out working with our franchisees, meeting with them on a rotational basis and spending time with the leaders in the field, making sure that we're spending time developing them, helping franchisees, providing them with tools to help prepare them for the next step when we do grow into new areas and they want to go. And then we also have a company-wide survey process where we have our employees reviewing their leaders, and we take those reviews and we work with each individual leader to talk about how we can be better leaders and how we can serve our crews better and serve our customers better. So our team primarily focuses on leading this team that's working with all of those people on the bench to get us to where we're going.
I think we invest a lot in the development of those leaders, and not only in operational things, policies and standards and all that, whatever stuff, the textbook stuff. It's really in life stuff. We want to teach people how to think about solving problems and how to think about people. Like, how do I, especially the world's crazy right now. I don't know if you've noticed. It's a little wild. And so us over-investing in like, how do you have an honorable conversation? How do you be accepting of other people with different lifestyles from different places and different experiences in a way that honors them and shows them that, look, we can be on opposite ends of the solar system and we still belong together. Like, we should be together. We're designed to do this together. Life is a team sport, and the more open you can be to every stranger you run into, the more you're actually going to make an impact on the planet. So if we can overinvest in teaching people how to think about what they're doing, how to think about teaching people how to do what they're doing, it just compounds. And I think that we have conversations with these young leaders in big groups that parents should be having with them or mentors should be having with them, and it's just not happening. And we feel a sense of duty to do that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about trying to create those moments. And those people have to do the hard work at the end of the day. That moment in that window is absolutely the most important thing that happens in our company, and we will not lose sight of that. So how do we prepare those people for that? How do we make them adaptable? How do we make them appreciative and grateful for the opportunity to meet someone they've never met before? How do we make magic? Just because it's why we're here, not because it's a tactic. And then also serve some good coffee in the meantime.
Right. As the motivation to get together in the first place. So good. I love that response. I actually feel like you're probably doing, like, the word that was in my head was like, you're untraining or you're uncoaching, right? You're taking all that kind of baggage and things I think there's still this expectation that we're supposed to be something different on the job than we are in real life, but you can't create those moments and you can't make real connection when you're wrapped up or in your head with some other persona besides who I am as a person. So I love what you're doing there. This just occurred to me, what are a couple, if you have them to offer, like, what are a couple like key books or key philosophies or, pieces that all of you have read? Like, so at BombBomb, I'm thinking of a book because at BombBomb, like one or two people will read a book and they'll be like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing. It speaks to how we view X. And then we'll all read it and it just gives us new language and keeps us going. Like, is there any like core curriculum? Because A, I want to read it or watch it or whatever. And B, I'm sure listeners might too.
Yeah, I know personally one of my favorite books, and it's a book that we encourage our employees to read, is Raving Fans. It's Ken Blanchard, I believe, who it is. It's an amazing book about just how to make your customers a raving fan by meeting them where they are, like we talked about earlier. I mean, it's one of my favorite books of all time. We have a giant list of books that we encourage our employees to read they're all over the place, from servant leader to One Thing, 1 Minute Manager. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, my favorite book that we suggest to people is QBQ, Question Behind the Question. I think that's like some Jedi level, like navigating human behavior book. I mean, if you can ask yourself good questions, you can lead yourself in a positive way. And if you know how to ask good questions of other people, then you can get places together. And not from a manipulation standpoint, but from an authentic, heart-grounded place. I think we are our own biggest deceivers personally, so if we can learn to, like you said, untrain ourselves of that, I think it's pretty powerful. For that one, for me, unlocked something that I feel like just took it to the next level for me.
I just picked up a book that I'm reading right now called The Power of Moments, and it's about capitalizing on the moment and peak experiences when you're going to an event or going to a place, what you remember from that experience and how to maximize on that experience. And it's been an incredible book for me, just on realizing the importance of the moment and understanding where people are coming from when they're visiting. It's been a really good one too.
That's awesome. That's the second reference to that book on this podcast. And we're only like 35 or 40 episodes in. So for those of you who are listening, I will link up all three of those references. I write up posts at bombbomb.com/podcast on every episode. So if you've just been listening to this and you want to go deeper on some of these ideas, we're writing it up. There's more video clips and I put links to things that folks mentioned that I know you'll want to have access to. You guys give 1% of gross sales back to, I assume, I want to know how this is executed above all, in addition to the motivation, but you give 1% of gross sales back for community-based efforts. What was the spark? I mean, I already get it. Like, I feel like I know who you guys are and what you're about, at least enough of a level to know that this absolutely makes sense for you and who you are. But what was, when did you start that and how do you actually execute it? Is it store by store? Is it?
Yeah, I don't recall when we started that. And 1% is the only part we talk about. Our franchisees and operators go way above and beyond that. They're some of the most generous people I've met. But we designed it in just to be intentional. Like you could compare it to a tithing or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like, it is our intention first is to give. So we want to make sure that we remind each other of that. And we're doing it in local communities because we're there. We're partaking in the enjoyable things of that community. And we have an obligation to do something in return, above and beyond offering a service or trying to create moments. It's like, how do we spend some of these resources that we've been blessed with to make where we're at better with, and it's always in our 4 pillars. It's with children, it's in music, it's in health, and it's with origins. So it really boiled down to just intentionality.
I know to add to that, like we've been talking about our mission a lot with relationships and making a difference in community. We want to make difference in the lives of the community. We also want to make differences with our community as a whole. And a lot of our shops and leaders will go and volunteer they just get so involved in the mission on making a difference that they go and volunteer their time at local food shelters. They'll go to food banks. They'll go to Big State Families, different things to try and truly put this in the forefront with how can we make this community better by being here. And it's been really exciting to see.
Awesome. We do similar, although I don't know that we have it as a tithe per se, like a fixed baseline, but both time and talent, we do that a lot as well. And I think one of the obviously it's great for everybody. It's great for the beneficiaries of the time or the effort, but it's also great for the team members within our company to have that experience together. It brings them closer to one another. And ultimately, you guys obviously get implicitly that employee experience is the primary driver of customer experience, that like when the employees are connected to their work and connected to each other, it all falls out. And if you can do this like win-win-win where it's awesome for everybody, including like we all want to live and work in communities that we're proud of and connected to and that are healthier today than they were yesterday. In the face of the crazy world that you referenced earlier, talk a little bit about the language. So for an outsider, like for someone who's pulling up to Dutch Bros for the first time or just getting exposure to the brand and its people and the stores, like there's a lot of language you use. Like it can seem like it would maybe be a barrier, but the minute you step through it, all of a sudden it's what makes it feel inclusive. Like talk about some of the key language, again, around the mafia, around the Dutch creed. Like, what are these things? Just explain them for someone that maybe has a little bit of exposure and welcome them into it.
Obviously, like I said before, it's about keeping things playful, and it's about, creating this thing that people want to be a part of. It's in the lightest form that you can imagine it. Obviously, there's no intention for us to in any way associate with some sort of like illegal activity, but it's not, right. It's the mob. We're a collection of people on a similar path who want to just have fun and keep things light. For the mafia, that's where it kind of implies exclusivity, but it's really about inclusivity, and there's just no bounds to that for us. Everybody is included. And it's the creed, actually, we adopted that. It's originally the Optimist Creed. And that's the Optimist Club is something that we've been a part of for several years. And we've just adopted it as ours. Language-wise, though, and some of which you said could be a barrier, especially when, because we're on volume number 11 in a lot of our shops. We just let people talk how they want to talk. Really, as long as you're honoring that person, there's no like doctrine where we're like, be sure to say bro at least every 4 words, or we don't do that. We actually say the opposite sometimes. Like, don't over bro people. If you're the dude, man, like don't do that. Like, talk to people how they want to be talked to, and not. And the cool thing about our relationship with our customers is they correct us. They'll let you know how they want to be communicated with. They say, don't call me sir, don't call me bro, don't call me honey, don't call me ma'am. And we're like, got it. Easy. Thank you for telling me that. Yeah. And then we emphasize a lot too of names, people learning people's names, because how can you say you have an authentic relationship when you don't actually know a human being's name? So yeah, we language, we want to keep stuff playful. It's funny, we even do it internally at HQ. We've made up some just wild names for positions, executive level positions, where we've been like freedom fighters or like
special forces,
special ops, or all mobsters. Just fun stuff. Like
it's fun. We've actually let the teams actually have a say in the title of the role because we want them to feel like a part of it. They like looking at some of the names we came up with, freedom fighters and special forces and mobsters. A lot of those names came from the group that was already doing that stuff. And they're like, we're here on a mission. Like, I feel like we're the special forces. We're the Navy SEAL team coming in there. So we're like, okay, cool. Special forces it is. And with the mob, they came up with a mob because we mob around and we go and help open up all of our new shops. And we're like the mob mentality. We're here to make a difference in people's lives. And they were like, it also stands for the acronym of Masters of Broista, which I thought was super funny, but like we're playful. We just want to have fun. I know that our mission statement as a company is we are a fun-loving, mind-blowing company that makes a massive difference one cup at a time. And part of our titles and names and crazy language is the fun-loving piece of it. That's who we are, and that's who we want to be.
That's awesome. I know all about having a name that might suggest dangerous activity in BombBomb. You don't want to wear logo gear at the airport and those kinds of things, even though fun is one of our 5 core values as well. Relationships is our number 1. So I feel like there's a lot of kinship in the way we approach our businesses. But double back for me, Levi, on the Optimist Creed. For folks who aren't familiar, just give another pass at that, because I think it comes through in the way you talk about your business, optimism and connection and all of that. But for folks who aren't familiar, just go one layer on that.
Yeah, I would encourage people to look up the Optimist Creed. I think there's a common misconception that we all have every line memorized or that we live by every single line of it every single moment. It's not true. It's a fantastic, to me, menu of guiding principles that you can employ in moments of need where each one applies. And that's kind of how I talk to our people. Like, you can't be this all the time. No one can. It's a complete list of being perfectly human. But if you can look at that in your moments of weakness or your moments of need and go, there's something on here that can help steer my mind in a way that'll get me through this tense portion of life. And I just encourage people to check it out. Join the Optimist Club. It's pretty neat. It's just guiding principles, but it's very simple. There's not a, for me, at least to memory, at least in the way we employ it, there's not a huge level of depth beneath it, because on its face, it makes sense for what it is. So I'd say, tell people, check it out, adopt it, and then forgive yourself when you get some of them wrong.
So good. I will also add that to the show notes. Lance, how about go from people development to field operations? Just talk about, like, what were you doing a few years ago, and what was the transition like, and what are you doing today? Just practically speaking, for, people who understand the business from the outside as a customer. Like, I assume you're probably working on people and culture and things. I'm sure that's still part of what you do, but just talk about the kind of the practical nature of those two roles and the transition between them.
Yeah, I think with Dutch Bros, coaching, business coaching, and people development are synonymous. We're a company about people and making relationships with customers, and it starts at the very beginning with our crew. When we bring them in here, everybody's on a different path in life, and we know that. And we know that most of our employees won't be with us long term. So we spend a lot of time setting goals with our employees and talking to them about their future and where they want to go, and just reminding them that they can do whatever they want if they work hard and put their mind to it. And my roles evolved from I was in field operations under the operations team doing the same thing to becoming people development, and I was still doing the same thing. And I was back in field operations. I feel like I'm still doing the same thing. But Levi and I work a lot more on looking at insights and stats on the business performance, on that kind of stuff. But primarily, we're focused on building our bench to help go out and open new stores in new areas. And the people development side of it is working with our coaches on how do we spend time with these people in the field to make sure that they understand what our mission is and how are they performing with that mission, and how are they leading their crew, and how are the customers engaging with them. And people development is it's our pipeline. That is our future. That is our mission. That's what we're doing. So I would say I'm still in people development, even though my title's changed. 90% of our focus is in people development, but we still have to remember that we are a business and we've got to make good decisions. But yeah, people development is still the mission.
Love it. Levi, can you speak to the same thing, like, from SVP of leadership to SVP of field ops? I'm going to guess that there are some parallels in what Lance just shared, but talk about your own journey there.
Yeah, that one, my previous role, we'd identified that as we hire people into HQ from the community, that we were maybe not onboarding to the level that we should. And so a lot of my role went into pouring into the executives, the VPs, and teaching them how to teach people that we hire about what our core values are, where we're going, everything from having challenging conversations, just some of that stuff where we probably assumed, or were a little generous with what we assumed people had experience in previous leadership positions. And we found out quickly that not everyone had experienced every single thing. And so my role was in trying to make sure that they got experience in coaching conversations or write-ups or hiring or interviewing, or so that I just kind of would just act as a support vehicle for our executives when they came in. And it's similar to him. I feel like I've done a lot of different things. I ran the operations department, ran the marketing department. It's all the same. It's all people development. It's all teaching people how to think about what we're doing, teaching people how to prioritize where they spend their energy, and then reminding them that to keep it simple and stay tethered to the fundamentals and provide the best service to your team that you can, so that at the end of the day, in the window, those moments are created.
It's awesome. This is a really practical question. So you're creating these moments, but you're also, keeping track of the business. Like I'm going to go out on a limb and say you don't have any hard rules about how many people need to be moved past the window on a per minute or per hour basis. But how do you balance that between, you need some volume to move through the stores, but you also want, for the people who are open to where their appropriate experience, right? Not to be there's no uniform experience. So if someone wants to spend some time at the window, like how do you balance that? How do you coach to that especially for new employees? Like, you need some volume, but you also want it to be as awesome and special for each customer as they want it to be. I'm sure some want to just like get in, get out, but some don't.
Yeah, it's funny. Over the past few years, our operational, our positional roles in the shop have evolved. So 1, to be faster, but 2, to make sure that we don't lose sight of the experience and make sure that we're taking care of every customer. And if you pull through a Dutch Bros now, most of the time you'll pull through and there'll be an employee that comes and greets you in the line to take your order and say hi to you and connect with you while you're waiting. And then at the window, you'll have another opportunity. And in some cases, you'll even have an employee that'll bring drinks out to you in your car while you're waiting. We preach, there's different types of customers. There's 4 different types of customers. There's customers that know what they want it now. There's customers that know what they want and they're not in a hurry. There's customers that don't know what they want, but they want it now. And there's customers that don't know what they want and they don't care how long it takes. And we just try and teach our crew to assess that individual and know what they want and give them that experience that they need at that place and time. So it's really just being a Jedi and being able to read body language, reading that customer and giving them what they need. If they're in a hurry, then ask them what flavor profile they like, make them that drink and get it to them as quick as possible so they can get out of there. And for the people that like talking a little bit more, it's not uncommon to see our employees walk them away from our drive-thru and continue the conversation with them outside of the line so that they can get that fixed. But really, we're here to meet every customer with their desires. And if they want to spend time with us, then we'll find time to spend time with them. And if they want to get out of there fast, then we're going to be as fast as we possibly can. But it's always been an interesting balance because we've had the crews that say, my customers want my time and they want to be here for 5 minutes and I'm not going to sacrifice that for them at all. And I'm like, well, the customer behind them might want to get to work is on time and you're slowing them down and we can't, it's just balance. And I think the new system where we have our employees out on the line, we have multiple points to read what that customer needs and we can get it to them in the best way possible. So, yeah.
That's super good. I think if people listening think about their own businesses, even if it's not this same structure of a business where you're, physically moving people through, you're going to find the 3 or 4 or 5 types of people that your frontline folks. So for us, it would be salespeople and customer support and customer success people who are on the phones and on video calls through Zoom with customers directly to do that same assessment, right? Who is this person? What is appropriate for him or her? Oh, this is the highly transactional person who knows what they want and wants to get out of here right now. So good. I really love that. And I can see people probably turning some wheels as it was for me. And what does that look like in my business? Another practical question before we get to the way I always love to close the show. And I'm super interested in what you both have to share on that. So you're still running or under the brand name, there's still a number of franchise shops and people and coaching and training and development are super, super important. How do you balance that? I'm going to guess that you franchise locations to people who already knew you or knew the company or knew the brand. And there's a little bit of alignment there inherently, but how do you make sure that folks that pull up to a non-company owned store are still getting the experience that puts that halo on the brand and the associations that people have with the company overall?
Yeah, I think other brands have probably more of a challenge with that relationship than we do. I believe we have the best franchisees of any company on the planet. And it's because even though they are franchisees from, they weren't brought up in the company, they do come stocked with some of the important things that we cared about. We wouldn't have franchised with someone that wasn't aligned in our belief in people or our dedication to the highest level of service that we can provide, and as well as the giving that we do. So I think we're really fortunate in that. And also, like, we have a fantastic leader and they all respect him tremendously and they're very receptive. That doesn't mean we don't spar. And as my boss likes to say, throw binders across the table. We do. And we encourage some of that. At the end of the day, we all know that we're all going in the same direction, and we will. And, people's values and priorities change, and that stuff works itself out long term. And there's nothing wrong with that. But by and large, we have to balance it a little, but it's probably not as high maintenance as other companies have to deal with. Again, because the people we pick to be part of this and to go out there and promote the brand are people who are people-loving people. Mm-hmm.
Great. Ed, that doesn't surprise me at all, but I loved hearing you walk that out. This has been awesome. I really love, above all, how you're doing what you're doing. I mean, I like the aggressive goal for 2023 as well. I like people that want to keep growing something good and having a positive impact on their community. But the way you're doing it is just really, really powerful. I can see how it's attractive and beneficial. We have a couple employees from your company at our company, right? But I'm sure for as many as them, where we get the benefit of all of the values and training and probably life training coaching some of these people are getting, like you said, things that their parents or a mentor coulda, shoulda, woulda taught them, but they never got it, right? Like, you're straight changing lives on this. And so, some of that talent staying in-house and some of it is going to other companies. And you're making a really big impact, even beyond what you could know or measure. So continued success to you. But before I let you go, relationships are our number one core value at BombBomb. And so I like to give every guest, and so we can go either or, and you can decide who goes first. I want to give you the chance to thank or mention someone who's had a positive impact on your life or career. And then also just do a little shout out to a company who you respect for the way that they are serving their customers.
Great question. I'm going to go another business that has blown my mind. There's a restaurant in town called Sticher Flores here in Grants Pass. And every time I've gone there, they have done such a good job of blowing your minds. Whether me and my wife go with our 3 kids and they're throwing food all over the place, causing a disaster, they still make you feel so loved and so welcome, and they just want to take care of you. And I would recommend anybody driving down I-5, passing Grants Pass, goes to that place because they're phenomenal.
Say the name again.
It's called Sticher Flores.
Okay.
They're phenomenal. And as far as a mentor goes in my life, as corny as it sounds, I know this guy's played a huge role in my life. When I came to Dutch Bros, he was one of the guys that got me here. And since day one, he's just been a phenomenal leader, not only at work, but as a husband, as a father, as just a good guy that I want to be like. Levi's been that guy for me since day one at Dutch Bros. So as corny as it is, he's the guy.
Nice. It's great.
He's too generous. For me, company. I love Chick-fil-A. I really do. I just think they're fantastic. I think at their core, they just want to honor people. I think people can get caught up in the other pieces of it. But at the end of the day, they just want to honor people, and they're doing it the best way they can, and they're dedicated to it. And so I think they're a good example of staying committed to your core. And I understand that there's all sorts of, like I said, the world is wild and we tear everything apart and we don't give enough people the benefit of the doubt. But they are a good example of trying to keep it human and just being, like I said, relentless in your pursuit of that thing. I'm going to do a corny one too, not corny, but predictable. And I have to say Trav, one of our founders, and Dane obviously too. But I have more experience with Trav just because he's just been an incredible example of generosity and intentional generosity in a way that I just can't understand. He just loves people at such a high level, and he honors them at such a high level, and he gives them time, and he is thoughtful in the way he communicates with them, and he has a tremendous amount of grace for mistakes. And on the opposite side of that, he just wants to kick ass. He just wants to have a place that people love to come. And he just doesn't veer from that. Like, the guy will come to work, he'll crank on some loud music in the lobby. People can't hear on the phone or get work done. And it's important that that interruption of pattern takes place because it reminds people to, again, keep it light, have a good time, enjoy this thing. And we're all here for the same reason. So I have to say him just because he's done so much for so many people that no one will ever see. What we know, we get a lot of praise about the Undercover Boss episode. I'm like, it's funny because I've seen him do stuff like that hundreds of times for people. So for me, it's exciting for people to get a glimpse of that. But I also get to see very really that it's just the way he lives his life. So I'm just grateful for that man in a way that I can't even describe.
Awesome. If someone wants to follow up or learn more about you guys or about the company, where would you send people to learn more besides BombBomb.com/podcast to get links to all the awesome things you referenced?
I mean, I feel comfortable sharing my email. I'm not afraid. But lance.risser@dutchbros.com. And yeah, I'm happy to talk. I love talking to people. So if anybody has anything to hit me up with, feel free.
Website, if people want to, check out the values, check out the history and, learn more about the founders you mentioned, what's the website?
dutchbros.com.
Awesome.
Check out that Undercover Boss episode if you haven't seen it. It's fun.
Cool. Can you just Google that and watch it online, I bet?
Yeah, you can watch it online. I think it's even on YouTube. You can check it out.
Awesome. You guys, I really, really appreciate this. I enjoyed it very much. Continued success in what you're doing. And thanks for being here.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Hey, if you're ever looking for any links like to their recommended reading list or to the Optimist Creed, you can get those and a whole lot more by visiting BombBomb.com/podcast. It's just the word bomb twice, BOMB.com/podcast. I write up every episode. I include video clips. And of course, I link to the things that we talk about in these conversations. Thanks again for listening to the B2B Growth Show.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.